Hey there, folks. Welcome to episode 19 of the Microsoft AZ-800 course. Today's lesson is called Windows Server Administration. And of course, that means we'll be talking about some of the administration concepts. Now, speaking of administration concepts, the administration topics we'll be talking about in this video are things like delegated privileges, least privilege principle, just enough administration, or JEA for short, privileged access workstation, or PAW for short, user account control, or UAC for short, and then lastly, folks, jump servers. So there you have it, folks. Those are the administration concepts we'll be talking about in this video. Now that we have our list of topics out of the way, before we jump into the gist of things here, do me a favor and poke that like button. The more folks like this, the more YouTube will push it out to other folks who potentially need this, who can't afford training. So you'll be helping other people out there, not just me. If you yourself would like to stay up to date as to when these new lessons get uploaded, feel free to also boink that subscribe button then. Alrighty, let's get to that first topic we had on our list earlier, which was delegated privileges. In short, delegated privileges provides a way to grant limited authority to specified users or groups. As you all probably noticed by now, IT and technology is moving at a massive pace, and it's very quickly becoming next to impossible to do everything yourself, especially in a medium to large size organization. This is where this topic comes in now. With delegated privileges, you can basically delegate some of your work to others, IT-wise, of course. This will usually, in most cases, be to other technical staff, usually lower ranked than you, of course, as well. It might be someone like a junior technician, for example. If you do this correctly, it will usually free up a lot of time for more senior staff such as yourself, assuming you're more senior. So if you're not more senior, then at least now you know what this topic means. So if you or someone is a senior, they obviously have limited time. And if they're going to be doing all kinds of nonsense like resetting people's passwords, you're sapping some of their time which could have been used better elsewhere. So if those people get to delegate some of the less important tasks like resetting people's passwords, that's going to free up some space for those folks so they can go and deal with more important things, of course. So yeah, delegated privileges is also great for junior staff who are still learning and finding their way because you're giving the opportunity to learn. This way, you're giving them the chance to learn, but also at the same time, not giving them too much power to the point where they can do some serious damage. If they, for example, make a boo-boo. You know, at the end of the day, we're all learning. We all start at rock bottom, and when you start at rock bottom, there's always the chance that you might make a boo-boo and, potentially break something or do some level of damage. So this way, we are limiting the amount of damage they do, and we're giving the opportunity to grow. So yeah, delegated privileges is also great to use at branch offices where security or trust might be of concern. If you're sitting with one or more branch offices who have IT staff, but you or your company don't quite trust these folks, you can delegate limited privileges to them, limiting their actions, of course. This way, you can gradually increase the privilege as they earn you or your company's trust. Unless, of course, your company has some sort of policy or your client's company has some sort of policy which just outright, ban people from growing. You get weird companies like that. So, to help folks out there with understanding this topic better, I think, you know what? Let's switch over to a virtual machine that I've got running here in the background. It's got server installed on it. And it's one of the previous ones that I've been using in the previous lessons in this course, of course. So yeah, let's get that out of the way. Let's show you folks what delegated privileges is and how you can give it to a user. All right, so let's switch over. Okay, then here we are on that virtual machine I just spoke of, which has got server installed. I think in this case it's server 2019, but for what I'm about to show you, it doesn't really matter. This could be the old server, it could be a new server. Honestly, it doesn't matter because this principle is the same on all of them. So what you need to be able to do this server needs to have ADDS installed. You'll find that has been installed. If you don't have it installed, you're obviously going to have to go and install that. That's going to install the Active Directory domain services, which in a nutshell, of course, installs the Active Directory software, which houses your user accounts, your groups, and from there you can go and configure all kinds of things like your group policies and link them to organizational units, which are known as OUs for short. So for now, once you've got the ADDS installed, we're going to go to the top right hand side here on the server manager to the tools menu. And here you should find the users and computers. If it doesn't show there, it's probably because the ADDS role has not been installed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that little son of a gun and just give it a second to pop up. And there we go, folks. So you would see this looks familiar to what we've been using previously, although I did create this for something else in the background, so you can ignore the one that says banana. I know that's totally random. So in the previous videos of this course, you would remember we created the organizational units called New York, Paris, and Tokyo. Fancy name for a fancy folder, which allows us to go and link group policies to them. Not the topic today, though. We did somewhat cover that in the previous lessons. So the example I'm going to use for today is, I think let's use Tokyo. So I'm going to go and expand Tokyo here. For all intensive purposes, I've made that folder for a pretend branch office. And like you would expect, at a normal branch office, you'll probably have various departments. So I went ahead and created myself various departments. I didn't do that right now. I made this in one of the previous videos. But for now, let's just say there's various departments: finance, IT, marketing, and sales respectively. And if you go to various departments like IT, you'll obviously find there's users in there. Now, most of mine is actually blank, but it still serves its purpose. So what is the topic right now? The topic is delegated privileges. And as we know, that is to basically pass down some of your responsibilities to people lower ranked than you. I wouldn't say that's set in stone, but that's normally why we do it and how we do it. So this is probably going to be just some junior or someone at a branch office, and you just want to free up some of your time or some of the time of the more senior IT staff so they can get to the more serious stuff. And a common reason why we do this is for something random like resetting people's passwords. If you have got many branches in your company, there is absolutely no way you can go and reset every user's password, so every day I can guarantee you there's going to be some folks that's going to say, I forgot my password. Doesn't sound like a big deal. I mean, it's easy as pie to go and reset someone's password. But if you go look at the amount of people that's going to be complaining about passwords, it's going to take you forever and a day. So why not get the juniors to go and do that, freeing up some of your space, or some of your time, sorry. And at least then you'll have more time to yourself, to go and deal with more serious matters. So I'm going to first go and make a random person here. I suppose I can actually go and use one of these two, but let's just go make a random user. I'm just going to say new user. Notice this video is not about creating users. Not going to explain that. This has been done in a previous video. So what can we call this? I'm just going to say Jones. You can see it's the same as that person's last name. Jones blank. Because I can't think of a last name right now. So I'm just going to make it blank. Let's just say Jones, I don't know, B. I suppose that will be sufficient for now. Next, just choose a random password. I'm going to choose a random password once more. And that should do for now. I'm not going to go and elaborate on that. That was discussed in the previous videos. Next, finito. And the user should be created in a second. There we go. There's Jones blank. So you'll notice that I made this person in the IT department. Because who are we going to be delegating privileges to? It's probably going to be someone in IT. Either low rank or high rank. In this case, it's probably going to be a junior of some kind. So this is now a Tokyo branch. So at each of these branch offices, now I obviously just have 3 here, but realistically it could be way more than just 3 branches. This could be 20, could be 50, could be 100. So for now, let's just pretend there's many of them. At each branch office, you're most likely going to take 1 or more people and delegate privileges to them. Now, depending on how much privilege you want to give them and over what departments or what branch level, that will determine where you're going to go and right click. So for example, if I want this person called Jones blank to take care of the whole Tokyo branch for me when it comes to certain somethings, let's say resetting passwords, I would have to right click on the whole branch called Tokyo. But if I want this person called Jones to only take care of things for me in a certain department, you would right click on that department. Now in this case, what is Jones going to do? He or she is going to go and reset passwords for me when people forget their passwords. This I would like Jones to do for me for the whole Tokyo branch. So I'm going to go right click on Tokyo branch and say delegate control. But if you didn't want to give this person control over the whole Tokyo branch and just a certain department, you could of course just go right click on that relevant department and say delegate control. So I'm going to go do it on Tokyo, delegate control. So I'm going to give this person some level of permission. Click on that. I'm going to drag it down here. Click on next. And now you get to add a user or multiple users, a group or multiple groups. It's really your choice. I'm of course just going to add this one person called Jones. I'm going to go click on add. I'm going to run a search for this person called Jones. This is a check names. Finds it. Okay. Next. And here you have more or less the ability to go and choose what you want this person to be able to do. In my case, the person Jones. So what did I say? I said I want this person to be able to reset passwords on my behalf because I simply just do not have the time to go and do that nonsense. So I'm going to go and tick the box that says reset user passwords and force password to change at next logon. It's going to make my work a lot lighter. I'm going to go click on next. Obviously you'll notice these are tick boxes, so I can assign more privileges now or even later if need be. I'm going to click on next. Finito. And we are done. Believe it or not, we are done. So now the next time Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones, not sure if it's a Mr. or a Mrs., I didn't really think about that. When they go in here, they will have the ability to go to any department here, any department, because I did this for the whole Tokyo branch. They can go to any department, right click on any person's name, and they will find this little button here. It says reset password. Now obviously I see this button because I am the main administrator. But if you're not an admin administrator like Mr. or Mrs. Jones here, he or she would not see most of these options. A lot of these are going to be missing for them because they're not an admin. The only thing they can do is reset passwords, and that's about it. A lot of these options are actually going to be missing. They will definitely not have the ability to go and delete someone. They might not have the ability to go and view their properties. They will not have the ability to go and disable their account. They will not have the ability to go and add them to a group or copy. So this menu, I suppose we can call it a drop down menu, would be roughly about half the size. So how long it gets depends on what level of privilege you give to that person. So hopefully that makes more sense for you guys. So I think let's switch back to that presentation of mine. Alright then folks, our next topic here, which was on that list in the beginning, is least privilege. Least privilege is the concept of restricting access rights to only those rights needed to perform a specific task or a specific job role. A golden rule 90 is you never ever give someone or something more access or privilege than what they need to do their job or a task. This actually includes yourself, believe it or not. Yep, yourself as well. There is many reasons behind this, but one of the main ones is the security concern about it all. By giving someone just enough privilege to do their work, we are effectively limiting the amount of damage they can do. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they will be out to do damage. It's often a case of the user's account got compromised by a hacker of some kind. And now that hacker is actively working to obtain sensitive information or to do some sort of damage or to perhaps sabotage something of some kind. Now, if we gave that user who got compromised just enough privilege to do their work, the hacker who compromised them now would be limited with the information they can access and also, of course, limited with the amount of damage they can do with that account. Obviously, they will still be able to do some level of damage, but we're just trying to minimize it. Basically, it is damage control, if you want to call it something. Okay, and then of course you also have scenarios where it might really be your staff that's doing the harm and not actually some outside hacker. Sometimes staff turn rogue This could be for many reasons. Maybe the person did not receive the increase they asked for, or maybe what they were hoping for. Maybe they did not get that bonus they were expecting. It could be anything. The point is, it's a disgruntled employee of some kind who is now actively trying to cause some sort of harm to the company. They're angry and now they want to take it out on the company. So if you assigned limited privileges to that user who is now disgruntled, he or she is now limited in the amount of damage they can actually do. In case anyone is wondering about my statement from earlier where I said you need to even limit your own privilege, this is now of course in the event of your own account getting compromised in some way. I mean, anyone can get hacked and anything can get hacked. So not if, but when you get compromised, this is obviously going to help. So in proper medium to large organizations, the main administrators don't actually normally use the main admin accounts unless they absolutely need to for something. If it was me, I would make myself another account, which is, well, very limited for the most part. It may or may not even have some level of privilege. If it does have some level of privilege, it will really be just enough for me to be able to do my day-to-day work. I would then use this new limited account for my day-to-day work, like I just said. So yeah, I would then only use the main admin account I spoke of earlier if I absolutely need to for something that requires me to use it. This obviously simply just reduces the risk of the main account getting compromised. Now, we're obviously not saying it's not going to get compromised, we're just reducing the likelihood of this, of course, happening. Now, regarding this least privilege principle, you can apply this principle to things like user accounts, of course. And this one is obviously, of course, one of the most obvious ones. You can also apply it to service accounts and then also computing services. Alrighty, so in short, this whole principle states that all users, including yourself of course, should sign in with a user account that has minimum permissions necessary to complete the current task and nothing more. So that leaves us with the next topic on that big list we had. Next up, we have just enough administration. This, of course, is also known as JE for short. JEA. Sorry, I might have mispronounced that. Now, just enough administration is an administrative technology that allows you to apply role-based access control principles through Windows PowerShell remote sessions. Instead of allowing users general roles that often allow them to perform tasks that aren't directly related to their work requirements, JEA, or should I say just enough administration, enables you to configure special Windows PowerShell endpoints that provide the functionality necessary to perform a specific task. Just enough administration allows you to lock down administrative sessions so that only a specific set of tasks can be performed through a remote Windows PowerShell session. And then just enough administration increases the security by limiting the tasks that can be performed. You can configure just enough administration by creating and modifying role capability files and session configuration files. Okay, then let's have a look at that fourth topic we had on that list earlier, which was Privileged Access Workstation. This is, of course, also known as PAW for short. A privileged access workstation is a computer that you can use for performing administrative tasks, such as the administration of identity systems, cloud services, and other sensitive functions. This computer will be protected from the internet and locked down so that only the required administration apps can run. You should never use this workstation for things like web browsing, email, and other common, end user apps. And it should have strict application control. You shouldn't allow connection to wireless networks or to external USBs or anything of that regard. A privileged access workstation should implement security features such as multi-factor authentication. Some of you folks might know this as MFA for short. The whole idea with a privileged access workstation is to minimize the risk of accessing sensitive resources with a compromised workstation. Basically, what we're saying is just don't use your everyday workstation when it comes to accessing important things like servers. In a lot of companies, they will have a dedicated computer which is used to access something like a server, of course. This dedicated computer is often not connected to the internet. It has absolutely only stuff installed that needs to be installed, which is often, well, most likely nothing actually in most cases. So if there's going to be something installed in that machine, there's a very good chance there might be nothing installed on it. Nothing or the bare minimum. If you use a dedicated computer like this to access a server, it drastically reduces the chances of that server getting compromised. This is now assuming, of course, you're using this to access a server. It could be something else. So I'm just using a server as an example. Sorry, I apologize. If an IT staff member were to use their everyday workstation, your normal day-to-day workstation, to access something like a server, that leaves us with a very high risk situation. What if that workstation or that IT staff member is compromised in some way? If it is, they might very well not know about it right away. Now, they end up using that compromised machine to access sensitive resources, which just makes matters drastically worse. Obviously, it's not going to be on purpose. This is probably going to be something that's, well, something that the IT guy is not even aware of. And he or she is now going to go and access that server with that compromised machine, which is their everyday machine, and boom, bam, before you know it, the server is compromised. So to avoid that, you're going to want to go and use a dedicated machine to go and access that server. That's the whole idea behind it. I think that more or less about summarizes a privileged access workstation. So let's have a look at the fifth topic on that list, which was user account control. This is more commonly known by its abbreviation, which is UAC. Okay, user account control is a security feature that provides a way for users to limit the status of their administrative account to that of a standard user account. The whole idea with this UAC is not to allow people to just willy-nilly do whatever they want on a Windows machine. This, of course, includes your administrators. Imagine a situation where your PC gets compromised with malware of some kind, which is now trying to automatically install not so nice software in the background on your machine. If it wasn't for things like UAC, this would be able to take place successfully, which is obviously a big problem. Now, if something tries to install nonsense on your PC automatically without your knowledge, at some point it's going to pop up with a prompt asking you if you're sure you want to install this app or whatever it might be. Now, obviously, if you see some random message popping up on your machine that says it's trying to install something, and you know for a fact you were not busy installing something at that point in time, that's an immediate red flag. And that's the whole idea with UAC. Something cannot just go and willy-nilly randomly install something in the background without your know-how. It's going to pop up a message, even if it's just something like that requires you to click on yes, I accept, or yes, I am aware of this. So it's basically going to stop any form of malware right in its tracks, where it's going to basically be forced just to ask you, hey, are you sure you want to install this? And if it happens to be malware that's doing something automatically in the background without your knowledge, at least now you'll know, and you'll have the opportunity to say, no, I do not want to install this because I'm not aware of this. So with UAC, when the user wants to perform a task that requires administrative capability, referred to as elevation, the user is prompted to confirm that elevation, which is where the benefits to you comes in. By default, UAC prompts the user when they attempt elevation, which is basically as follows. If the user is an administrator, which is usually going to be the case if it's your own machine, they are prompted to confirm the elevation. It's just going to ask you, are you sure you want to install this or change this or do this? It's not going to ask you for any passwords of any kind. It's just going to ask you, are you sure? Now, if you or the user is, however, a standard user, they will be prompted for administrative credentials. This obviously means they need to provide some administrator username followed by an administrator password. So to summarize, if you are logged in as an admin, which is usually going to be the case, it will just pop up informing you of something that's about to take place, which requires privilege, and it just basically wants to double check with you if it's okay with you. If you're logged in as a standard user, which is a limited account, as soon as you try to do something, like for example install a program, it's not limited to that by the way, it's going to ask you for admin credentials. You will need to provide this or, well, get an admin staff member of some kind to come and do it for you. This will then obviously prove that you are allowed to do whatever it is that you're about to go and do. This is all to prevent staff members from, well, just doing whatever they want to do when it comes to company machines. Like, of course, installing random, non-work related software. If you want to go and prevent those folks from doing that on company machines, well, this is one way you can go and do that. Alright then, now that we have a fair understanding of what UAC is, let's move on to that last topic we had on our list, which was jump servers. A jump server is a hardened server used to access and manage devices in a different security zone, such as between an internal network and a perimeter network. These jump servers are very useful in most medium to large organizations. The name kind of already makes you be able to guess what it's all about, if you have some IT background, that is. Instead of directly connecting to a server, you're going to be using a jump server in between. You can think of a jump server as a middleman if you want. The best case scenario would be to use a privileged access workstation, which is what we covered earlier, and then use that secure machine to log into a jump server. So you're going to be combining these two bad boys. So from a jump server, you would then jump digitally speaking to the real server which you intend on accessing. The jump server can function as a single point of contact and management, but you can think of it as a middleman, if that makes it easier to understand. Jump servers do not typically have any sensitive data, but user credentials are stored in the memory, and malicious attackers can target those credentials because they know that the credentials are probably stored there. For that reason, jump servers must be hardened. I've mentioned the term hardened a few times in this video so far, so just in case that's confusing any folks that doesn't know what the term means, hardened means when you're taking that server, that PC or whatever it is, and you're making it more secure because of some sort of risk involved. This could be anything. It could be installing an antivirus. It could be anything. You're just making it more secure because it obviously has something sensitive in value, something sensitive in nature. Well, folks, that is it for this lesson. If you've learned something, please give this video a like. It helps me show that you've enjoyed the video and that you've actually learned something. And then, of course, if you would like to know when the next lesson gets uploaded for this course or any other course, also remember to go and subscribe. Otherwise, you might not know. Lastly, a special thank you to the sponsors of this channel. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. And if any of you guys would like to sponsor this channel, you can of course find that information in the video description down below. Although on the screen right now you should see the Patreon link anyway, but it's going to probably be easier just to go look in the video description down below. Alrighty, see you folks in the next lesson of Microsoft AZ-800 training course.
If you love me, let me know. If you don't, then let me. Hey.